Welcome to the Awakening Together channel here on YouTube. This is our Awakening Together weekly gathering. Each and every week we have a different minister who speaks. If you'd like to attend our services live, please visit our website, awakening-together.org. Click on Online Sanctuary and How to Enter the Sanctuary. Our services are held Sundays at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time. We'd love to see you in the sanctuary.
Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you all on this great Sunday. Welcome to our Sunday gathering. I want to welcome anyone here in the sanctuary, plus anyone who might be listening on the radio, and then anyone who listens a little bit later on. Glad to have you. And then this is the time when we do get a chance to greet everybody on the board, just as if we were in four walls. You can turn behind us and shake their hand. Now I'm going to read our statement of purpose. We are an assembly of equals, joined in common purpose, awakening to one true self within an appearance of many faiths, many cultures, and many symbols. We seek to discern one truth and to rest in its embrace. And then we like to choose one core value that we think our homily is going to highlight. And let's see. I think core value 5. We accept all forms as temporary appearances permitted through enduring awareness of self. We live this value by honoring all appearances and all experiences while continually reflecting on changeless truth. All right, keep shining. Here we go. Right now we're going to have a reading. Manuela is going to read for us. Thank you so much, Manuela. It's a article from Nirmala, and you can find it. It is under things to read on the website if you like to. It's the favorite links, and it will take you right to it. And it is entitled Desiring What Is. And so Manuela will read that now. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Okay, Desiring What Is by Nirmala. The Buddha spoke about desire. He said that desire is the cause of all suffering, the root of all suffering. Desire is a very juicy word. It's got to be, if it's going to have that much power that it can cause all the suffering in the world. He didn't say most of the suffering or a lot of the suffering, but all of it. Every single contraction of being is caused simply by desire. So it's a very powerful force. So it's worth looking into this thing that can cause all of the suffering you have ever experienced. One of the things you can notice about desire, a very obvious thing that gets overlooked, is that every desire is a lie. Every desire is based on the idea that things can be different than they are. And that's just never been true. Things have never been different than they are in that moment. You can even see how this lie might come to be because things are almost always are different than they were, but they just are never different than they are. They are always the way they are. So in observing this, we start to think that we can take this constantly changing the way things are and decide how it's going to be next. That's also based on a lie. You can just look in your own experience. How often has this worked? How often has things turned out exactly the way you wanted them to be, the way you desired them to be? Unfortunately, every now and then it happens, so we get hooked, like a slot machine. Every now and then we get what we desired, but it's a matter of random luck. If you desire enough things, every now and then you're going to get it right. What people often do when they see this lie is accept the way things are. It's funny, though, in plain old acceptance, there can be a sense of being defeated, a sense of resignation. I'll accept what is, but I don't have to like it. There can be that quality to acceptance. So, I invite you to consider another possibility. It's a strange possibility, but it's actually very wonderful in its results. And that is to actually desire what is. Meet what is with that same passion that you may have had for what could be or what you think should be happening. Meet what is with that kind of passion, with that force that is able to generate all the suffering in the world. Bring that force to bear on what is, on the truth instead of on a lie. There's another word for this, gratitude. It's different than just accepting. Accepting is somehow lifeless. It lacks passion or juice. That's why even though people may get that things are the way they are, they often go back to the juice of wanting things to be different. At least in desiring there's drama, there's intensity, passion and life, even if it does result in suffering. But there is this other possibility, actually desiring what is wholeheartedly, really truly saying yes to the moment, to what is, exactly the way it is right now, bringing that kind of passion and aliveness to the way things are. This brings instant, unlimited happiness because every desire is fulfilled. The reason that people don't make this simple but radical choice to want what is because it's so simple. You don't even have to raise a finger. Nothing is needed. People shy away from this because in wanting what is, the job description of the ego becomes do nothing. There just really isn't anything left to do for the ego, for you, who you thought you were. That's the price to be paid. To truly want what is, you have to give up the idea of being someone who can change what is. There's no longer a place for that. Changing anything would be working at cross purposes to what you desire. Then you come up against this inescapable paradox that even your desire for things to be different than they are is something you need to desire as it is. You can't leave it out. You can't leave out these desires that rise up for a relationship or for money or for spiritual awakening or for the truth. You have to meet those with this same gratitude. To realize your own suffering has to be met with gratitude, totally breaks open your heart. Often when people are on the spiritual path, seeking the truth, it's just another more subtle, sophisticated, dressed up desire, because the truth is right here, right now. No seeking is required. The truth has never been anywhere but right here, right now. People who are seeking the truth are really seeking after a better truth than the one they've got. It's another form of desire. The invitation to meet even that desire with gratitude. The invitation is to meet even that desire with gratitude. You have to want the truth if that is what is present, even though wanting it is an impossibility and based on a lie. you still just open your arms and say yes. You're never done. You're never done being grateful, because what is always changing, always new. Every moment is fresh. It doesn't have any reference. It is a completely new chance to be grateful. Whatever is happening has never happened before. Whatever emotions, thoughts, sensations, and experiences are happening are completely fresh and new right now. The opportunity to meet them with gratitude and passionately desire what is always available. You never run out of things to be grateful for. There is an interesting thing that happens when you desire what is. You start to desire what will be. In desiring what is, you step into where it is going. You step into the flow, into this mysteriously unfolding, ever new moment. This powerful force called desire can either cause all the suffering in the world, or, when turned to right here, right now, become this incredible powerful flow for beingness. When this starts to happen, it is easy to get overly intrigued with it. It becomes this really fun thing to apparently be manifesting something. It's actually a complete mystery how those two things are connected. You're wanting something to happen and it happening. It would be just as accurate to say that it is a form of premonition. So, when that flow is happening, the temptation can be to get so intrigued with that you start to play with that. The second you get intrigued with how things are getting easier, it's like saying, I'm grateful for the truth as long as this flow thing is happening. It's easy to be grateful when you're in the flow, and it's not that there's anything wrong with it. But if you get too interested in the flow and turn away from this mysterious meeting of the moment with gratitude, then your gratitude is no longer unconditional. You have to be willing to throw your heart open with gratitude, even before there's any sense of the flow. To be willing to do that even when flow is a distant, vague memory. That's where the life is. That's where the juice is coming from, even this apparent flow. And the other thing about flow is that sometimes the shortest path between 2 points is through hell. And that's just the way the flow is going to go sometimes. So if you have the idea that flow looks like a flat tire being fixed really fast, you might discover that flow has a very different idea about how long you will be on the side of the highway and how late you will be to your next appointment. It's not up to you how much suffering arises, which is devastating news to who you think you are if you are trying to get out of suffering. The good news is that it is up to something that is incredibly, profoundly wise, something that can see that the shortest path between 2 points goes through hell sometimes. And sometimes it goes through heaven. It has no preference. It just sees where this unfoldment needs to go right now, and it doesn't hold back. That's what has been happening all along. Your life stopped unfolding ever in spite of how often your life has stopped unfolding ever in spite of how often it seems not to have gone where you wanted it to go. Has your life stopped unfolding ever in spite of how often it seems not to have gone where you wanted it to go? It still goes, right? Something is there, steering it, unfolding it. It's not some truth out there that we need to be grateful for, some truth that will show up sometime in the future. It's right here, right now, just exactly the way everything is right now. Nothing is left out. Recognizing that whatever is only here for this moment. It's only available in this moment and will never be available just this way again, gives us this juice, this passion to meet it with gratitude. The reason we don't dive in with gratitude in moments of suffering or pain is because there is a mistaken attitude that if we do that, things will stay the same. We think that by loving this moment the way it is and all of its pain, if that's what is present, we will get stuck when actually the opposite is true. It makes sense for us to go to battle with our conditioning, which is behind our suffering, because our conditioning is so obviously a lie and it doesn't feel enlightened to have that conditioning. But when you fight it, it makes it seem really big. You've made it into something as if it had anything. You've made it into something as if it had anything to do with who you really are. On the other hand, if you take the perspective of desiring it instead of fighting it, you can see how ridiculous it is and laugh at it. And then it loses its potency. It is no longer a problem. It no longer controls you. It's just arising and you're saying, great, wonderful, what a gas. Then it never even has a chance to turn into something called suffering. The event appears and the conditioned reaction to it appears, and a complete enjoyment of both happens. So any possibility of suffering is immediately swallowed. It's not like we are unfamiliar with this process. This happens whenever something goes right. Every moment can be like this, where everything shows up, but nothing is a problem. Then nothing that happens controls you. What cuts through any suffering is simply choosing what is in every moment. It's not some complicated formula. It's simply meeting what is with passion and gratitude. It really isn't up to you how many times your conditioning keeps appearing. If it were up to you, it would have been done a long time ago, right? So the invitation is to find out for yourself what happens when you are willing to waste your desire on what is. Don't take my word for it. For just this moment, you can meet whatever is present with a passionate embrace, and then see if you can truly find any suffering here in this moment. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Manuela. I know that was a long reading. I appreciate you. I appreciate you doing that very much. When I looked at the article, certainly on the website, it's on one. It's on one page, right? So I'm like, it's nothing. And then when you print it out, it like went on forever. So anyway, but good stuff in there. One of the things that got me thinking about this topic was, I got to change my view here. I cannot stare at myself. All right, there we go. Seeing all of you. Thinking about this topic was a line from a Sheryl Crow song. And it was, it's not getting what you want, it's wanting what you got. And that just kind of trickled into this idea, and this is not new information to us for sure. Anyone who has read any of Loving All, and paid attention to that stuff, and Adyashanti's allowing everything in a deep way. This idea of desiring what is versus desiring how we want it to be, or wishing it were different. That stuff comes up for me all the time. And it's why most of my homilies have this thread of this desire in it that I will keep looking at until something else presents itself to me. So it's always this need to take a look at how that works, how desire shows up in my life, how it sidetracks me from what I truly want. One of the things I stumbled on in gentle healing, I think last week when we were talking and doing the readings, was sometimes I have to use faith to trust that my ultimate desire is awakening. My ultimate desire is to remember God. My ultimate desire is to know myself. And so I was talking in gentle healing that sometimes I have to just trust that and use faith for that, because I still am quickly enamored by wanting things to be different than they are. And part of that is thinking that that is being a socially minded, even spiritually minded, responsible adult to find things that need to be changed and change them. And that all sounds really noble and everything, but the reality is the majority of the time I spend wanting things to be different is in my own house with my husband, trying to get him to keep things off of the counter. I mean, that is truly what takes up my passion at times. And it can be just that silly of things that I sink my teeth in. It's not, ending, hunger or taking on any big issues like that. So let's look a little bit more at this reading. I really loved how he addressed a lot of these things. I love desire being a juicy word. It's going to be, if it's going to have that much power, that it can cause all the suffering in the world. And, limiting or simplifying the idea of suffering just to that contraction is very helpful for me. I can be aware of that contraction fairly quickly and know that that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about anytime that heart closes down because things are not going the way I want them. Talking about, any desire for things to be different than they are is obviously a lie. Nothing has ever been any different than it is in this moment. Things are happening and changing and moving, and people are changing their minds and changing their ideas about each other and doing all that kind of stuff all the time, and it's never been different. Things are always the way they are. And then the idea that sometimes things go the way you want them to go. Sometimes I have a talk with my husband and the counter gets cleaned off. Sometimes I have a tantrum with my husband and the counter gets cleaned off. And that is, you know, how he talks here about it's, we get hooked, right? We get hooked sometimes like a slot machine. I work in the intellectual disabilities field, and so we talk an awful lot about these psychological terms, intermittent reinforcement, which is exactly what a slot machine is. That you can go, you know, through long periods of time of it not hitting and just about be ready to walk away. And then all of a sudden you hit the jackpot and you are hooked. You will go back at least for however many times it took you to get that jackpot. And that is one of the greatest challenges of breaking through this conditioning, is that at some point in time, we get the payoff. Right? We get the payoff and we get the juice from getting it the way we wanted to get it. And so then we continue to chase these things that we think we want. But it's random luck, you know. It's kind of like even a stopped clock is right twice a day, you know. I like this idea of how he talks about we have these ideas of what acceptance is, that we sometimes confuse that with resignation, that accepting something the way it is, talks later on, means I'm resigned to that being that way forever. And that is ego strategy 101. You know, if I accept it, it will never change. If I accept it, I'm giving my approval of it, something along those lines. When the truth is, by accepting and embracing and allowing, we actually allow any of that negative emotion that is hooked to that. We actually allow it to move through and get freed from it, as opposed to. I've had conversations at times with people in my life about, you know, acceptance is not approval. It is just a recognition of reality in the moment, that if it's something you are not wanting to happen, but it's going on right now, the contraction fighting against it is what's causing the pain. The contraction that is insisting that it needs to be different, in the example that Nirmala uses here about being stuck on the side of the road because, you know, you have a flat tire. You're going to be there waiting for help however long. That is the acceptance piece right there. The contraction is coming from worrying about, you know, that you need to be somewhere else, that you are sure it needs to be different than it is. And the truth is, right now, this is what's happening and this is where you are. So this turnaround from living a life that wants things to be a certain way, to not only accepting things as they are, but that idea of taking that a step further and truly desiring it exactly the way it is. That is a different ballgame. I have spent time with the basic acceptance thing of, yes, this is happening. What are we going to do in response without having a meltdown? but the idea of absolutely loving what is happening, that's a little bit more of a challenge for me. Nirmala likens that to gratitude, that is, that when we can bring that sense of not only is it okay that this is happening, but I love the fact that this is happening. I can feel, just as I'm talking, the energy change in that, the vibration in that changing. It is another thing in gentle healing that we used to talk about when we were first talking about loving all is seeing stuff, you know, for me, it's always the clutter. It's the stuff around the house that my husband does. And he had this brown towel that he uses to wipe off the dog's feet. And it's the nastiest, ugliest looking towel in the world. And it is always around, and he hangs it on nails and lays it over the backs of chairs in the house because he has to use it when the dogs come in the door. And my stomach just turns because I have this idea of, you know, better homes and gardens, right? That's what I want my house to look like. And we come from different backgrounds. That's kind of the house I grew up in. My mom was extremely fastidious. And it was, I mean, it's like nobody lived there, right? It was just like, and it was supposed to look like that all the time. And my husband spent his very early years on a farm, and everything there was about utility, right? It was about, is it useful? And not only that, because the work was so hard, you wanted it convenient, right? So you kept it out and it was close and you could access it quick. And so that is, if you can imagine, our cohabitation over 30 years has been nonstop, this kind of stuff. And he wants it easily accessible on the counter, and towels draped over things so they dry out. You know, it just all makes very good sense to him. And it absolutely makes me nuts. So anyway, in gentle healing, I had shared, we had talked about, okay, so I was pulling away from the house one day and I saw it. And I had just spent some time with some planters and making some pretty things on our walkway as you walk up to the front door. And there on a nail on one of the posts is the brown towel. And it's just sitting there, like, and my ego at the time, like, really does think that he, you know, consciously did this. Well, I'll show her, you know, I live here too, you know, that kind of stuff. It's just that battle. And so I see that brown towel. And then I think it was Eileen had been sharing that she would come up against things like that. And instead of reacting, she would just say, oh, I love that. So I pulled out of the driveway and I just stopped and I just went, oh, I love that brown towel. I love that brown towel being there. That's exactly where that brown towel belongs. And I try to incorporate and bring that into my daily life. The thing about that I notice is, you know, we talk about attention around here, right? That and people will visit more certainly in our reflections on the retreat about visiting the creation principle and how all that works. And it is, you know, that focused attention that is creative. It is that putting that energy and that focus on things that says, I want more of this, bring it on. I want more of this. And it doesn't know one way or the other, right? If it's a good thing or a bad thing, it's very neutral in that. It's just that, oh, there's this energy, there's this focus on this thing. So that's what we're going to bring more of. And so what I have noticed is it's the negative things, obviously, the conditioned things that get my attention and my focus the most. And I was thinking the other day yesterday was house cleaning day, right? So I bump up against these things all the time. And I'm looking at the counter and I asked myself, so who is it that pays much more attention to the counter or the brown towel, that focuses so much on that and fails to focus on the bringing of the morning coffee to me every morning and putting it beside the bed, right? Or the focus on the experience of the husband that comes home after work and enjoys cooking. So he's the one in the kitchen and he is the one putting together the meal while I can sit and put my feet up and pet my cat in the evening. So those things don't get all that focus, don't get all that passion, don't get all that energy. It is those ones that I have decided that Kelly, that entity Kelly has conditioned herself to think things, those areas where I think I need things to be different. And the reality is I don't. I need it exactly the way it is. I need the brown towel. I need the cluttered counters. I need all that stuff exactly the way it is right here, right now. And I can know that because that's what is. And I can learn. I am not there right now. I did get to see in retreat where I am. And I was reminded of Regina teaching, and I don't know which one it was. But she talked about, it was a couple years ago, and she talked about seeing the journey to awakening, and that for quite a while, we're kind of like on the highway. She likened it to going someplace to take a hike, I think. And so maybe we're traveling freeway for quite a while. It's a pretty easy road. And then we get off onto maybe a side road or a county road and get a little bit further. And then we turn off onto a dirt road, and that's where it gets a little bumpy. And we can be on that dirt road quite a ways. And then we'll get to where we're actually going to start the hike, the heading uphill. And that's, that's a whole different journey. Well, I think I might be on the dirt road. I'm not sure. I think I'm headed there. I think it's the dirt road because it certainly has its challenges. But I think I am becoming a little more teachable, a little less closed-minded. That's what I can hope for today in my journey. Once again, trying to look at this desire stuff all the time. Look at what Kelly is wanting. I was reminded about in recovery, we have a tool, and we call it inventory. I mean, it's the same stuff, right? It's inquiry. It's taking a look at who we think we are. It's looking at all that ego structure, and it starts out. We list our a resentment of some kind, a grievance of some kind. And then the way I was taught, it starts out, you start answering the question, what did I want? Right? I mean, usually by the time we get to a place where we're resentful, where it's a grievance, where something's gone wrong, where we're not liking the situation, by the time we get there, a lot of stuff has transpired. But even going back to the beginning and as a way of learning something, asking that question, what was it that Kelly wanted? What was she after? And, I could just fill in the answers. I could just answer that question pretty clearly. I was after attention. I was after recognition. I was after validation. I was after other people seeing I was right, whatever that was that I wanted. And then take that one step further and ask the question, beyond that, why was that important? And it's that drilling down, and Regina has taught this a lot. It's that drilling down further. And every time I did one of those, to take the most grievous experience and drill it down to what did I want? What was I after? And at the bottom line was, I thought at the end of all that, there would be peace. I thought at the end of all of that, all those actions I took, all those things I did, all those words I said, I thought that would bring me a sense of peace. And then, so the final question is, well, did it work? Right? Is that what you got as a result of that? And I'm still doing that. I mean, that is still part of my practice. That is still part of what I have to bring to my day. The day is neutral, and I get to, take a look at what am I wanting in it. And do I want it just to be the way it is? That's probably the way to peace. And, but if not, and I go off on one of these tangents, which brings me back to the name, how I titled my homily was, I go off on these tangents and I discover that no, that did not work. That is not what I wanted. And then I can remind myself what it is that I truly want. I do want to remember God. I do want to remember myself. I do want to experience myself as I truly am. And so going off on these desire tangents, as long as I'm willing to ask these questions, when things don't go the way I want them to and I get stuck, that will bring me back. That often brings me back. And, once again, in the Holy Spirit's incredible way, we'll take everything that Kelly has created and chased after, thinking she wanted it, clean counters and everything, and realize, no, really what she wants is to be at peace and home. That's what she wants more than any of that. So I am reminded of that again. So that is what I have today. And so I think we'll listen to another song. And I just now remembered I'd never prayed. So spend some time praying while you're listening to the song, and I'll do the same. I apologize for that. This is a good time to donate to Awakening Together, and Dawn will post that link if you would like to do that. And we will listen to, it's a Pat Benatar song, one of my favorites. It's called One Love. All righty. Well, thank you, everybody.
Watching our online gathering. It happens weekly on Sundays at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time. To join us live in the sanctuary, visit our website, awakening-together.org. You'll want to click on Online Sanctuary in the main menu, and then in the drop-down menu, look for How to Enter the Sanctuary. Right there at the top of the page is a clickable link. We'd love to see you in the sanctuary and join with you in fellowship. Thank you again for watching. Also, please know that if you'd like to stay connected via the Awakening Together channel here on YouTube, you can subscribe and hit the bell for more notifications. We hope to see you in the sanctuary.